This is episode number 622 of the Inner Fight Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the show. No matter where you are in the world, hope you're safe, hope you're staying indoors, hope you're staying fit, healthy, and of course, to keep our show sponsors happy, hope you're eating well. SmithStreetPaleo.com is where you can order all your food if you live in the UAE. If you don't, sorry, we can't deliver to you, but you can hop onto the website and you can cook for yourself. Yes, you could order the ingredients online and you could cook in the comfort of your own home now that everyone has more time. SmithStreetPaleo.com, or give them a shout. hello@SmithStreetPaleo.com. They'd love to hear from you. Today's guest is a friend of mine, Shane Manning. Shane and I know each other from the endurance community here in the UAE. We often see each other out riding, and coincidentally, Shane is one of the coaches in one of my nephew's rugby teams. So there's quite a big connection there. And just a few weeks ago, someone sent within a chat group that I'm in a video of a gentleman that was in hospital with coronavirus. And it was Shane. I was blown away when I saw it, seeing a friend of mine in the state that he was in. I'll link to that in the show notes. And we were chatting, Shane and I, back and forth through that time that he was in hospital. And I said to him, mate, you've done a great job, because he's all about the seriousness of this virus. I said, you've got to promise me one thing. Look at me trying to work him straight from the start. As soon as you're good to go, let's do a podcast on this. He was like, yes, mate, we have to, because it's so serious. So I caught up with Shane. He had so much interesting stuff. He's so straightforward in how he talks. He doesn't mess with his words. He's not trying to keep anyone happy. He's just, he's on a crusade now, really, to help as many people as he can who are not taking this seriously. And also, you'll see from the show, he's so mentally tough about it and in such a good headspace and just enjoying his life right now. Such a great example to us all. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a show with a friend of mine, Shane Manning, who has recently come out of hospital having beaten the coronavirus. Please enjoy it. Please listen to what he says, and please take all the necessary precautions so that you don't get it. Welcome back to another episode of the show. And as I was saying there, folks, in the introduction, this one I'm massively excited about. Shane, as I was saying, is a guy that I've seen out riding. We've chatted. He coaches my nephew's rugby. So, mate, when I saw you in hospital with this big confession video, it's like, I've got corona. Holy shit, mate. It was wild. Talk us through it.
It was a pretty brutal few weeks, to be honest with you. I don't ever want to go back down that hole again. It was fucking nasty, beyond it. This thing's a mechanical beast, and it really, really drags you into some deep, dark holes that are not nice. So, it all started, as you said, you've seen some of the social media stuff. And to sort of double back, I put that Facebook video out originally. It was more that, look, here I am getting absolutely smoked by this thing. And there were still people sort of being told, yes, we're locked down, or in Australia and the UK, who were quite a few steps behind us here, who were still just going about their daily business. And it was like, guys, look, I've got this thing and it's absolutely ruining me. So it is real, it is serious, and here's somebody now. I just had to put a face to a name. Yeah. And that was the reason I did it. I didn't expect it to go to more than 100, 150 friends and family, whatever. And last look, it popped up on my phone before. It's had like 40,000 Facebook views or something like that.
Far out. That's insane.
So it is. It's really done the lap. Yeah. So it started out with just that feeling of, like when you're just getting a cold or you're just feeling a bit average.
Yeah.
And that was on a Sunday afternoon. And I embarrassingly crashed my mountain bike out at Hatta with the kids. I thought, honestly, there's a video somewhere. I'll send it to you so you can have a laugh. I literally tried to jump one of these things on the pump track and went straight off the edge, straight under my head. So I got back home and I sort of sat in the afternoon. I'm thinking, I feel a bit average. I wonder if that's my body just saying, look, you're not 22 anymore. You're 42. Wake up, you old bastard. So got up the next day and I was cooked. It had come from this cold-like symptom of a few hours to the next day I was flogged. I was heavily fluey. I was fever, losing appetite, diarrhea. I sort of sat with that for 2 days, but there was part of me saying, look, I haven't been anywhere travel-wise lately. That was on the list of the countries, nor had I known I'd had any experience meeting anybody who had it. So I carried on, laid in bed, and then after sort of 48 hours, it was like, look, no, this is too much. Let's go to the doctor. Called them, said, look, I haven't had any contact, but I've got these symptoms. They said, come on in. Had a mask on. On we went. They did a load of tests, but they didn't test me for coronavirus. It was because I hadn't ticked 2 of the boxes of had I met anybody or had I traveled to one of the listed countries. All they tested me for was influenza A and influenza B and whatever else. So test results came back from the clinic, an hour or 2 later, the blood tests and stool samples, and said, no, you're free to go. You've got no viral levels that we can pick up in the test. So effectively being saying, off you go, do what you want, stay hydrated, take a load of Panadol. So I've actually been and looked at the medicine they gave me. It was Panadol and Brufen, which, as we know now, Brufen isn't so good when you've got coronavirus. So that turned me on my head. That was the Tuesday. The Wednesday I was flogged, absolutely written off. But we were still allowed to travel, and the kids had been begging to go camping before it got too hot. Got up on the Thursday with a load of Panadol, and that wasn't feeling too bad. Stupidly went camping. But in my defense, and a lot of people have gotten pissed off at me at this, but in my defense, it was, look, the doctors have done all the tests that they've been told to do. I'm not going to argue and say, oh, I'm Dr. Shane the dickhead here. I know everything. Been told I'm not viral, I'm not contagious. So look, get on with it, suck it up, take the kids camping before you get locked down. Off we went. Got home on the Friday, went to bed Friday night, bang, game over. Total game over. And that's when, in my personal experience with this thing, it goes in 3 phases. That first, feeling like you've got a cold. The second one, feeling like, yeah, you've got a flu and you're not good now. You're wiped out. And then phase 3, third gear, whatever you want to call it, is when it really, really thumps you. And with that, I'd barely been out of bed in this stage by 5-6 days. I was lucky to be eating like a little mandarin and an apple per day. And, for a pretty solid guy like I am, I should be burning through a couple of thousand calories a day. And there I was, maybe consuming 100, 150 calories. Got the test. We went back to the clinic on the Friday night and said, look, we now know we've had contact with somebody who was positive. Right. Now, that's in no way does that need to be misconstrued to say it was this person we got it off. I say we because my wife's got it as well, but she's asymptomatic. Now, it could have come from us. It could have come from somebody totally different. We don't know, and I'm never going to insinuate that. But knowing that this person had it, that then meant I could go back to the clinic with these advanced symptoms and saying I'd met with somebody. We phoned them again. They said, look, wear gloves, wear the mask. We went back to the clinic. We were taken straight upstairs to a quarantine room, and the doctor and the nurse, everybody was, fully covered in, the throwaway robes, the protective gear, so on and so forth. Yeah. The test itself is one of the most unpleasant experiences you'll ever do. I mean, the swab goes so far up your nose, it's further than you've ever stuck a digit up your nose trying to get one out. And they also swab so far down the back of your tongue, you're almost dry reaching. Wow. That they did 2 tests on me. So I'm laying there super uncomfortable. By this stage, I was laying in a ball, I was in the fetal position in the clinic. My wife was with me. And because she was with me, they forced her to do the test as well. She's like, look, I'm fine. I've got no symptoms, no cough, no cold, no fever. They said, no, you've had contact now. We think he's got it. 24 hours later, we got the call from the health authority and said, guys, look, you're positive. We need to take you to hospital. And even with that, my stupid, stubborn self, no, I'm fine. I'm pretty fit and healthy. Let me ride it out at home. I'll be okay. Yeah. The guy from the health authority was actually fantastic, and he pushed hard, and it took him another 36 hours to find me a bed. And that's when I got sent to the Parkview Mediclinic. amazing facility. So to give them a shout out is definitely a must. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine, bro.
And Sue was on lockdown at home. So there we are with, well, in a week, 10-year-old triplets trying to do schoolwork with the wife stuck upstairs, locked in bed, me basically fighting with all I've got. So our nanny and Sue's sister, Preeti, basically doing everything they can to do all the schoolwork, keep the kids fed, keep them occupied, so on and so forth. So yeah, that was.
So it's just that I have so many questions. It's so insane. I want to
fire them, and I'll try not to waffle too much.
It's really interesting because I think that no one wants to listen to my voice, mate. That's not why they tune into the show. They tune in to listen to interesting people like you in this case. But
okay.
I want to try and get a gauge of the discomfort. You said there you were in a ball, in the fetal position, in this doctor's room when you were getting this test done. What were you actually feeling?
It's a good question. How do you put it into words? It's really hard to put into words, but when you've had the paracetamol, when you've had the medicines, and even as I fast forward into being treated, you go through these waves. And I was running a fever of, on average, above 39.5 every day, where when the meds had kicked in, the fever would start being attacked, and I'd go into these sweats of like I'd just come out of the water. So I'd have to call to get my bed changed at least twice a day. And it stank because I'd picked up pneumonia as well. And with the coronavirus. But how do I explain the feeling? You are in this deep, dark hole. Your body is just in pain from the top of your head to your toes. Everything's sensitive. Even to touch the top of my head was brutal. And you were frozen. You'd lay there shaking, and you did not want to be there, if that makes any sense. You can't. You so wanted to be somewhere else, anywhere else. Struggling through one of your brutal desert runs would have probably been nicer in the middle of summer. And I know how sadistic the dark areas you've put yourself through, and a lot of your athletes. So I've never done one of these ultras or these endurance things like you've done. But I know in the few little races I've done, I've put myself into some dark places fighting through the runs, which I always suffer with. But this was just another level. It really was.
This is, mate, you're really strengthening the case that I have with people, telling them that everyone should be doing ultra marathons because it prepares them for life and situations like mate, you can keep talking like that. Let's move on, because this is one thing. When I was thinking about our chat, mate, and the different challenges you must have had, and you sort of said it there. You've got triplets. They're 10 years old. You're in hospital in isolation. Your wife's now at home. She's in isolation because she's been with you. You must, on top of all the pain that you're going through, you must be in this, it must just be a complete, like I don't know what's going on in your head, mate, because no one can, normally when you're sick, what I'm getting to is normally when we're sick, everyone comes in hospital, nicey, and it lifts us up, mate. But you're in there on your own, and knowing that your 3 children at home and your wife's, it must have just, your head must have been all over the shop.
To be honest with you, Marcus, I kept a pretty good headspace. Yeah. I don't think I really grasped the enormity of what this coronavirus is and what it does to you. And I've said this to one or two others, and I don't want to sensationalize it or to make it sound over dramatic, but personally, I never felt within myself that I was on that proverbial edge. It just felt to me like I was getting absolutely thumped, but I always sort of knew I was going to come out of the other side. Now, as I'm sure you know, seeing my social media, a very good friend of mine, an old business partner of mine, he passed away 3 days ago from it. He was a bit older. He had a few complications, and he just couldn't fight it. and he also had pneumonia plus the COVID virus, and it got him. That has really come thumping down on me from a different perspective, but also I had the doctor coming in every day, and she told me, she said, look, you are just not responding to anything, and every test we do, the results are getting worse. So for the first 4 days I was in there, she said, I'm getting progressively worse, and there's a good chance they're going to have to intubate me and put me into ICU. So I was on effectively a general ward for serious coronavirus patients, but it was going to escalate because you might know more about it because of your understanding of the anatomy and that, this CRP, or C-reactive protein levels for inflammation. Now, they say the regular level or the normal level for somebody who's not really inflamed is 0 to 5. I was, at my worst, returned a level of 120. So that was me absolutely flogged. My O2 saturation levels were getting progressively worse. And they were bringing an x-ray machine into the room every day, taking an x-ray of my lungs. But then they took me down for a CT scan of my lungs one day to see what the extent of both the coronavirus and the pneumonia I was fighting. And she came back in, the doctor, Samara, and just said, look, your lungs are 100% overtaken. And what they couldn't understand was, look, here's this guy, yep, not old, not young, but relatively fit and healthy, who is totally overridden with this, but he's still quite functional and still coherent and still able to maintain the basics of existence, where a lot of these other patients who weren't, once their oxygen saturation levels were going down, that's starts getting pretty extreme.
How did that progress, mate, on a pain level? Like, was your pain massively increasing? I remember when I saw your video, like, you couldn't talk very easily, and it was obviously a lot of inflammation within sort of the windpipes and stuff, coughing. Maybe talk us through that, because I think that's quite interesting as well, because we talk about all these different levels and the way it's kind of suffocating and therefore like doing what you just said, literally killing people like that. How did that pan out for you?
So once, to go back to something I'd mentioned earlier about the 3 phases or the 3 stages. Stage 1 was just the little cough. Stage 2 was just the body ache and the pains. And I hadn't developed anything in my chest yet. So this coronavirus really hadn't taken over my lungs. And then as the last sort of day at home was when I really started getting this hacking cough and the lack of air, and then into the hospitals when it really took hold of me. So as you could see from the video, I was struggling to breathe, even to talk at a very basic level. And that's part of that deep black hole I talk about, is you have to try and sleep sitting up because of all the gunk that's on your lungs. You can't really lay back and let it stay there. So I was trying to find a position where to sleep, and any slight movement would send you off into coughing fits and this lack of air where you're just really fighting for it and you don't want to move. And then, I was sleeping under 3 blankets. So going through those phases of the medicine as well, I'd go from boiling hot to freezing cold. So any movement. So I had to structure my days around the medicines being delivered. And then I had that 3-hour window. Now, take into this that I was probably 7 days where I might have consumed 1,500 calories, maybe 2,000 calories as well. So I was just sort of laying there I just couldn't eat. And it was the sweet fruits. So I'd order like a tiny takeaway cup of fruit salad, and that was my whole thing for the day. And then I just woke up one day and said, I just feel like white bread and jam. It was just sugar. And I knew that first day I had about 3 bits of melon, a piece of kiwi, and 2 bits of orange. And the orange was too sour, and half a slice of bread with jam. And that was the most I'd eaten in probably 5 days. The next day I had a full slice of bread and jam and a bigger part of the fruit salad. So, yeah, it's pretty...
I guess, mate, that obviously that has a massive impact on your recovery as well, and on the body sort of healing itself, because you're just not having any any food to boost the immune system. Talk to us a little bit about the medication that they give you, and did it make you feel better? Did it make you feel worse? Like you talk about that cycle that you went through, the daily cycle, but did you, because often when you're in hospital, like when they come to give you medication, you're like, yeah, this is it. I'm going to feel better after this. But I've heard different things about this disease. Like the relief is not really, because there's no real way to treat it. There's no.
That's it. It's got to ride its course. So I was given, what are they called? I can't even think of the name now. You might be able to. We've seen it all. Been Donald Trump to British Prime Minister and all that have all spoken about the product, the antiviral. So I was on the antiviral. I was on the antibiotics for my lungs. 1,000 milligrams of paracetamol every 8 hours IV. Vitamin C and a load of fluids. And that was a big bag of fluids, however big that was. That was also thrown into me. I was on a nebulizer, which was just a little mask, and that was every few hours. And there was 3 different types of that, and one of them, it was chemical. I really did not like that one. One of them was like sulfur. If you've ever smelt the air in New Zealand or other places with volcanic activity, it stank, and they stick this thing over your head. I was like, shit, this is bad. And then the second one was this other one, which was like this chemical. It wasn't pleasant.
I know exactly what you mean. I had the same, not exactly the same, but a very similar thing when I crushed my lung, because there was all this, like my windpipes were full of blood, where the blood had come up from the lung, and I had a nebulizer on it. It was funny, mate, because I thought when I got home, I had to have a nebulizer at home, and I was, oh, shit. I thought after like a year, I was like, I'm never going to need this nebulizer again. And the other day I was sorting something out. I was like, oh, I've still got this nebulizer.
Damn, jackpot right there. That's the jackpot. But it's go ahead, go.
It's a weird taste in your mouth to try and clear out all the blockages in your lungs. It's disgusting, right?
It is. And, the doctors and the nurses, one of the nurses would come in and she'd give me a bit of a I wouldn't say back pat, but it wasn't a thump. And she'd sort of hit the sides of my ribs, hit my chest, just to try and loosen up what's going on in the lungs. But back to the meds, I was also getting a vitamin D shot every day in my hip, in my bum.
Wow.
What else were they giving me? Something else. So, but to be honest, the only thing I felt was just that breakdown in the fever stronghold on me from the paracetamol. And that's when I would, okay, look, I know I've had this bag of goodies. Yeah. About 30 minutes, I'm going to start the sweats. So get ready for that. And then we can change the bed, get up, shower, get things done, speak to people. And then it was like, I'm cooked. I'm wiped out, crash out again for 3 hours, 2 hours. Wow. Then you just went, look, I know I'm about to go dark. So I've got another 2 or 3 hours of just ride it out so they can give you the meds again.
Oh, yeah. Mate, before I want to move into the recovery and the good news, but also want to, like you said, dwell a little bit on the seriousness of it. When you were coughing, when you felt it in the lungs, was there a point where you're like, I'm going to suffocate from this thing? Like, did you?
Yeah, it really held you down. I'd liken it to, I grew up surfing and I still surf a lot when I can here. I'd liken it to a really long hold down where you're absolutely bricking it in surf when you're uncomfortable and you're getting absolutely thumped. You just you're like a wounded dog trying to get air in, or something like that. So my lungs were cooked from that, and it does scare you because the air's just not there, and then you're trying to talk to somebody, and it's like, and I remember my grandfather passed away some years ago now, and he was a smoker. He was a heavy smoker, but he died of asbestosis and emphysema.
Right.
And I remember hearing him the last sort of 3 to 6 months of the phone calls with him. And I listened back to a couple of voice messages I'd sent to my friend who passed away the other day, listening to each of us talk to each other. And it just brought me straight back to the phone calls I'd had with my granddad all those years before of how he sounded just struggling to get the air in. And it was like, shit. It really rung some bells in my head to say, you were a lot worse off than I sort of thought. And that's going back to the question you asked about my headspace. It was, I think like you, personally, I'm probably too stupid to let myself get into a bad headspace in this instance. As a business owner, I struggle in a lot of other ways with stresses and pressures from running a business. And times, I think you could probably resonate with this, as times when you have to make decisions with staffing and personnel that go against every ounce of humanity, then I battle with that in my head, and it really puts me in a bad place personally. And it's a case of, look, Shane, get your head out your ass, get out of bed, stop moping. And a lot of the time now, my wife will just basically just tell me to get up, go for a swim, go for a run, go for a ride. And it fixes everything. Your endorphins again, you get up and it's like, Shane, just be pragmatic about this, grow up. You've got to do this. This is why you've got to do it. So, yeah.
Was that something that you were able to bring into sort of your recovery as well, mate? That sporting aspect, like, must be huge. Like, you know, you talk it down, mate, but I've seen you spent a lot of time on your bike, and that's you'll go out and you'll ride 5-6 hours. You've done triathlons, short ones, long ones, like, you know, that experience and that mental toughness and resilience that you've built there you must have really felt it come into play here.
Yeah, definitely. The body. And, you know, just before I got sick, I'd had an amazing week. With the lockdown, we had more time to train. So I'd been out on the bike with David Labouchere and a few of the Optimal crew who are strong riders, you know, Taff and Tommy and Edith. I think Billy was with us. And, you know, on a good day, you know, I could barely keep up with him. And we did 2 hours of intervals over about 65, 70K. And I mean, I was blowing out my ass, but I just felt good. I felt strong. And then on the Friday morning, I'd gone out for a swim with David again. We did a nice big 5K swim all the way out around Burj Al Arab, come back in. And, you know, I was in a clear headspace, clear body space. A week later, bang, just wiped out. But it sort of, once I started getting a little bit of air back in, I started just moving around the room. And it wasn't even a, Shane, you've got to walk for 10 minutes now. I just started doing it. It just came natural. And sort of 15 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I've just been walking around this, you know, 15 square meter or however big the room was for the last 15 minutes. And then I started doing push-ups and things like that. I got in shit for that as well. I did a little time-lapse video. I did a load of squats and push-ups, still with a cannula in my hand. Doing that, it was sort of, made me think about you. And there's an Aussie guy called Paul de Gelder, who I picked up his book. He was a Navy diver, and he got attacked by a shark in Sydney Harbour doing a Navy dive for a lot of the senior military staff, and he lost his arm and his leg. Yeah. And a lot of his resilience and mental fortitude and his training, you know, he was this guy that just was always go, go, go. He's like you know, the Energizer Bunny. Yeah. And I remember reading the book, how he was 10 days after having his arm and leg amputated, he's doing one-arm pull-ups in the hospital bed and getting absolutely bollocked because he's popping his stitches and blood vessels everywhere. So I was like, look, all you've had is a little cough here, get on with it. So I started doing a couple of push-ups and that. And then one morning I got up and thought, you know, bollocks to this, I'm going to have a run. Or a wobble. I call my runs a wobble because as you know, I'm shit at running. Always have been, always will. But, you know, I'll get it finished, but it won't be pretty. And so I did 15 minutes just at a slow pace around the room. Just, no. I think I worked it out. It was about a 13-meter loop for about 15 minutes. So it was, I think it was just on a kilometer I did running around the room. And the nurse come in. I know the doctor come in, and she, no, you can't do this. No, I got to get the blood flowing. I'm not breathing heavy. I'm just cruising. So
What day was that, mate? Like, it's quite cool. We're into a really nice part now where you're actually recovering and starting to feel good. How many days from the day that you sort of checked into Parkview Mediclinic to doing the push-ups in the room are we talking here?
Day 7, I think it was.
Wow. So you're literally just 6 days just out of it. Just that cycle, 3 hours, bang, medication, losing your mind, blankets, showers. Wow.
I still remember waking up. It was the 6th day. I woke up and I messaged one or two people and said, you know what, I think I've just broken the fever, because I'd managed to sleep about 4 hours through the night.
Wow.
Because they would come in and they take your what do they call them, your vitals. So the vitals and whatever meds they'd give me I think mine was about 11 o'clock at night, and they'd put me on the nebulizer, and then they'd normally be back in around 5 to 5:30 in the morning, which was the injection in the arse, the chest x-ray. They were taking blood every morning. So that was sort of my wake up anyway. So
wow.
Day 6 was when I'd said, okay, but that was realistically day 12, day 13 of the whole cycle.
How many more days were you still in hospital for after that,
mate? 9 nights, I think, in total.
Wow.
And as I started, or as the doctors started to see improvements in my reaction to the meds, or I don't even know if it's that, or it's just my body fighting back from it, or this, Marcus, this thing's a mechanical beast, and this comes with no scientific, no rumors from doctors. This is just purely my perspective, that I honestly think this thing's been engineered. It's just so mechanical that it seems so many cases are just 2 weeks, 12 to 15 days, give or take. And the 3 phases that you go through, it's so similar for people. So when I'd started showing signs of improvement, they started doing the swab tests again in the nose. And I had to return 3 consecutive negative tests, each spaced out by 24 hours before I could be released. Wow. And with that, of course, there's an urgency for me to do that to free up a bed space.
Yeah.
As we know, that the cases globally are still multiplying. So that was that. But then I'd returned the 3rd test, but that was late in the afternoon, early evening, and through all the paperwork procedures internally, through insurance providers and the government, they couldn't get it all done, finalized before the 8 p.m. curfew. So I ended up having another night in the hospital.
Buy 9, get 1 free.
Well, to be honest with you, and my wife's going to kick my ass for this, but there's something beautiful about solitude in a hospital or a hotel room. And, like yourself, you're always on the go. And don't get me wrong, I live a very privileged life here. I've got 3 active, healthy kids. You said I coach Edward, your nephew's rugby team. Well, I'm one of the coaches, which is great. So that's a Friday morning. Most Saturdays I'm on the bike. Throughout the week I'm on the bike, swimming, trying to run. I run 2 of my own businesses, so I'm on a plane 2 or 3 times a week. I'm in and out. It's just go, go, go. So in a lot of ways, this thing, as shit as it was also a blessing in some ways for me to take the foot off the gas. And for about 5 or 6 years now, I've had hypertension, high blood pressure, and really taken an approach of trying to get my life in order. For many years I lived very self-destructive, and I was just shit, drinking too much, eating crap, lazy, whatever, blaming everything, and a bad headspace. I straightened everything up, and I still had the high blood pressure. So I also had high, cortisol levels, which for so many people, they can never find a medical reason. So I'm going to say it's just my way of dealing with stress, which is kind of shit in a lot of ways, but hey, some deal with it differently. So in the last 2 weeks, I've not had my blood pressure, 3 weeks even, I've not had my blood pressure medicines once. And my blood pressure has been spot on, 120 over 80, which is, I guess I'm just not facing the daily pressures of work. We've got some sort of financial comfort with us with the businesses. And that means that all of my staff are facing very little or minimal financial disruptions and still got job security all the way through. We're sort of looking September, October to be able to keep paying them at the moment. So it's let me live in a bit of a good headspace as well.
It's strange, mate. That's a massive positive, and I love to sort of get some more of those as we go here. But it's almost, I feel like maybe you're starting to feel like it's been a cleansing in a way. Like, God knows you don't want to go back there, but it seems like your perspective on a few things is a bit different. And I'm hearing this from a lot of people that have not had the virus, but are just at home, that they feel less stressed. They feel more present. So then we start to open up to all these crazy conspiracies that are starting obviously to float around. But it is weird, like how you framed it there. You seem like totally chill. I mean, you're relaxed anyway, mate. I think that's your nature, but it's just cool. And it's like one of those things that happens.
Yeah, Marcus, I think a lot of us needed a reset. Yeah. We did, with this perpetual connectivity of life that we live with social media, with telephones and things just getting faster. Yeah. People expecting everything in the here and now. As a human race, are we going to go back to our old ways? I hope not, but I think the reality is we've all got to pick up the millions of tiny pieces because all of our lives, financially and otherwise, have been shattered at the moment. Yeah. Is it sustainable for us to take a bit of a back seat? I'm loving it. I'm being home with my kids. I'm going through, as I said, my wife, Sue, she's still stuck in lockdown in a hotel on the Palm. So I'm trying to keep up with a few inquiries we've got with work and that side of things, but I'm also doing all the schoolwork with the kids and seeing them learning and being with them over their shoulder, the little frustrations they face trying to understand fractions and decimals or in their literacy, but also seeing the remarks they're getting back from their teachers saying, great work, well done. My little fella, his teacher, Mr. Hall at DES, a great teacher, a Welsh guy, asked them to try and pronounce that Welsh town with about 700 L's and Y's in it. And they had to record it. And the little fella did well. And his teacher said, well done. So there is a lot of positives to take out of this negative, definitely. Cooking a lot, eating a lot. I don't have to get up at not even the crack of dawn anymore to go train. I can get out on, I'm sort of getting shit for that as well. I did a triathlon around the garden the other day at 3:30 in the afternoon. When can you do that in Dubai?
Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, I wonder what the naysayers have got to say about that, because, mate, I want to jump to that as well. Your story has become a nationwide, and obviously you're an Australian, so it's become quite big in Australia as well. How does that feel, mate? You've become famous for having coronavirus. Like, it must be
famous for being a fool. I don't know. I'm just rolling with it, mate. It was, like I said early on, I'd made that Facebook post more out of frustration and concern for some friends and family here, Oz in the UK, who just, I think all of us, until we knew somebody that had it and they put it into context, we all were just sort of rolling with the punches and going, this lockdown's a load of bollocks, whatever. So that first Facebook videos had something like 40,000 views officially. Speaking to another mate of mine, he was saying it's gone around Instagram chats, WhatsApp chats and stuff like that. Just before I spoke to you now, I had my health authority calling me saying, look, they want permission to use some of my social media stuff on their platforms. And then they said, can they share my details with the Dubai government media office, who did a 5-10 minute video conferencing call to go on Dubai One. In some ways, I think it's okay that yeah, I'm this poster boy of the virus. If I can portray an image to people to say, look, here's a guy that lived a destructive rock and roll lifestyle for many years, and I mean, take from that as you will. Let's not go into details, but also someone that has turned their life around, both physically and mentally, from having my head in a ditch and so far up my own arse and coming home just so pissed off with, you'd fight traffic. And when I was living out in Murdiff, I'd leave work and I'd be frustrated with companies not paying or this and that. And it just manifested in my mind. It's like, Shane, grow up, move down near the beach. And, I changed gears and started living a lot cleaner lifestyle, a lot healthier, enjoying the training and all that brings with it. It was, if that can inspire another person to get up off the sofa, to put down that glass of wine or that beer or that burger, then, great, I'll proudly take that title. And if it does help people who are also scared as hell of this bastard virus, give them my number. If somebody says, hey, can I contact this guy? I'm happy to talk them through it and say, this is what you're going to face through these phases of this thing. And also I've been reaching out to the doctors and asking, because we know now that there's enough medical proof to say, if I can donate my plasma or blood donations, that I should have, what's it called? I've got some sort of immunity, and to give platelets for people that are in ICU. I'll drive down there now and go donate. It's
there's a lot of positive. I think it's amazing what you've done, mate. I think, like you said, you just started it by a Facebook video for sort of family and friends. And to be honest, that's where I picked it up, mate. Someone forwarded it to our ultra group, and I'm like, what? I'm looking at it, and it's you. And I'm like, what the fuck, And
it doesn't look so good.
They're like literally riding 2 weeks ago, having a coffee together, and I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. And then I'm like, I don't want to annoy him. But then we started chatting, and I'm like, wow, it's like, I think, and that's the biggest thing, mate. And the thing that I think is the strongest in your message, I think there's two massively strong things. One is, like, guys, you've got to take this seriously. Like, it took you from, like, okay, you're a decent athlete, mate. You get out, you get it done. A fit and healthy guy. It took you in this hole, and it's just, so many people are not taking it seriously and protesting. I mean, Easter weekend in the UK, and pricks are drinking beer in the park. It's like, okay, you've got the rest of your life to drink a beer in the park, mate. Like, I know that, the chance of you getting it is not huge, but we're actually...
It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't discriminate. And I know when I was in hospital, there was a 7-year-old kid in there fighting it. So you've got to think how scared, confused they would be, but also their parents hearing about these cases. Now, statistically, kids under the age of 10 or 12, and then even as you go into teenage years and young or later teens, young adults, statistically, they're very, very low numbers of cases. Yeah. It's definitely not just an old parent and old people's concern. Of course, as you get older and your body starts deteriorating, you look at the numbers of deaths and the numbers of severe cases of these people fighting it. Those statistics are adding up. But, I've got a few family members, two of my brothers and my mum are all in the airline industry, and they sent a news article yesterday or the day before from the States of a 27-year-old flight attendant who had it, but been hospitalized, getting all the treatment possible. Game over. Guy passed away. So it doesn't discriminate. You could be an ultra endurance athlete like yourself and they say some people who are training a lot, who've got a high training load, and, you do have that increased stress on your body. There are potentials that you could have a compromised immunity. Absolutely. Hopefully you don't, but it's something you've just got to say, let's suffer this thing. Let's take 3 months to learn to cook that dish you wanted to do, to learn French or German or Welsh. Spend more time with your kids. Learn what your kids do at school. Mate,
that. Like from the medical side, obviously you said it's great medical care and attention, but we're obviously from the outside, we're looking in and going, yeah, this is bad. But you have a different perspective on it, having been on hospital side, feeling it in your body, seeing how it's treated, people around you with hazmat suits. on maybe the longevity of this thing and the actual scale of it as well, because sat at home, we read the news. We're not on the front line. We don't see it. So maybe a little insight into that side of this virus.
That's the scary thing. Nobody can give us an answer, and it's that leads me back to my own little personal, theory on this thing. And again, I don't want to start any conspiracy theories or any of that other hoo-ha, but there's been nobody's claimed this thing. They're saying, oh yeah, some fool eating a bat or some bollocks. I don't believe that for 1 second. So I don't know, Marcus. I'm at a loss to explain it. And it's just gradually going on. Cases are increasing, some are decreasing. 4 or 5 weeks ago, Japan had come out and said most of their cases had been contained. They were decreasing. They were getting down to numbers. I seen something pop up from BBC or one of the news things that pops up on my phone. Japan have just had record numbers of increased cases over the last 4 days. So it's just gone full circle. What is going on with this thing? American cases are still increasing. The UK are increasing. Other countries are decreasing. They were saying, let's get into April here in a lot of Northern Hemisphere countries. Once the weather starts warming up, the virus can't survive over 25 degrees. Yet Thailand and these tropical places are getting thumped with it. UAE is pushing out 35 degrees every day. Still got increasing numbers. So there's no answers at the moment because it's so new. Is it from this dude eating a bat, or has it been made in this lab in Wuhan as a weapon of war, and it's gotten out? I don't know, and I don't want to create any hype or any bullshit. So please forgive me, anybody that's listening, but you've got to ask a question of both sides of this thing.
Yeah, it's I think as the further it goes on, mate, I read a lot and I listen to a lot of different stuff, and I don't know if you'd call it conspiracies or just facts, and the mortality rate of everyone tanking their economy versus the mortality rate of the disease. And then you look at these different models, like the one that you spoke about, Japan suppressed the virus like everyone's doing, like we're doing here in the UAE. But then when they started letting people out again, the virus starts to explode again. So it's like, okay, so that doesn't really work. And then Korea have a really high testing rate. So their ratio of tests per capita is super high, and they've managed to keep it. And then, and then the Wuhan is supposed to be opened back up again, but
believe that
no one wants to go out, and it's like, I think time will tell, mate. I think, we, like you said, you have to almost make a peace with it. You have to just stay cool in your own headspace. And some people can do that. You did that super well, and some people can't, but it's going to be with us for a while. And, I think you're just a great case of how to fight the little bastard, mate. It's been incredible.
It's definitely a game changer, mate. It's definitely a game changer. And, the thing is we have the flu season every year.
Yeah.
What happens next year? Do we have the flu season and the corona season? Now, are they going to come up with antivirals how many of these anti-vaxxers are going to sit there and take their chance of not vaccinating if they've got a proven vaccine? There's still 1,000 questions we can ask about this thing, and 99% of them are not going to be able to be answered until the doctors and the scientists and everybody else have a full understanding and a grasp on this bastard.
But that's what's interesting as well, is that it's so funny. One of my mates said to me the other day, they can figure out so much shit, but no one seems to be able to figure this out yet. And it's like, yeah. But then you go back to what we were talking about before, 1,000,001 different conspiracies, mate.
Exactly. It's time will tell, mate. And I think more than anything is, look, we just have to embrace the situation we're in. It's not the best. I know you love the word normal, back to normality and living a normal life. I see all your social media posts. But I think once we do get back to reality, we people, let's embrace this bastard thing. We've got time off that we're always pissing and moaning about. We never have.
Exactly.
So You know, you might not be able to get a turbo trainer for a bike or a rowing machine if that what blows your skirt up. Fuck, man, get on YouTube and you want to learn to dance, salsa, tango. I can't get over people just so frustrated and pissed off about being locked down. Or, yeah, I would love to be able to go sit down on the beach, go for a swim, go for a surf, go for a ride out around Al Qudra, or get out into the hills or jump on a plane and go surfing in Sri Lanka. That was the plan. I can't. That's the reality of it. Look, I've still got 3 beautiful children. I've got my wife, my beautiful wife. I've now got my health back. I've battled through it. Hopefully I can help a few other people through it just from a mental perspective. But the other thing is just gain from it, gain from every experience, you know. That's...
Is that, mate, I'm obviously conscious of the time. If we could sort of, what's your biggest learning from this? Like, what is that your sort of thing? Just life's actually not too bad, crack on, like, or is there something, you know, I know you've shared so much, mate, and maybe we just go over what, but if we could say, like, what's the biggest thing you take away from that 9 days in the beautiful Parkview
Suites?
Everything.
I think,
mate, what is it?
I think the biggest learning is time, and I've got to find ways personally to get some time back, to not be so absorbed by work. You know, we all have to work to pay the bills, but, you know, like I said, I had a good friend pass away the other day. Their time was cut short. So time and your health is everything. And I know you're a massive proponent of it. This world of ours, especially in this first world society we live in, is so inundated and overrun with fast food and packaged food and just shit, sugar, refined flours and processed crap. And, you know, we've got a massive big order in from Kipson's, and I've been every day making breakfast, lunch and dinner for the kids, loads of fruit, loads of vegetables, just enjoying it, you know, doing oats with the kids. And now we get up in the morning before they start their school thing. We go outside, we bounce around on the steps, up and down, just to get the blood flowing, open up the hips, walk around. Just health, man, your health. You don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Absolutely. You're a legend. I'm gonna put a link in the show notes to that video you put up. It's tough to watch. I'll be honest. And I watched the ones you did. Even the one when you were leaving the hospital, mate, I felt like, I was like, oh, wow. Like, cause I remember when I left the hospital and, like, you know, it's a weird feeling, but I watched that and I was like, wow, I felt like I was with you the whole way, mate. It was fun.
I appreciate it. I really do. It's definitely, it's been interesting, shall I say, an interesting few weeks. And I don't ever want to experience that again. No way. I don't want to put my parents through it either. You know, Sue was strong the whole way through it. And, you know, I think deep down she knew that I'd come out the other side. I'd be one of the lucky ones. But no, it was nasty. So stay healthy.
Absolute legend. Thank you, mate, for your time, and thanks a lot for what you're doing as well, mate. You are the poster boy of coronavirus, and whether you like it or not, mate, but you're making such a positive out of it, mate, and I think that's testament to who you are and that headspace that you're talking about. So, mate, absolute legend.
A lot of it comes from the inspiration of guys like yourself and loads of others in this active community that we're lucky to be a part of. So, you know, a big thank you to you and your team and what you've created with your wife as well, you know, really pushing for healthy foods. And, you know, the Tried to Buy community, which I'm a part of, but, you know, there's a much broader spectrum of active lifestyles here. You know, there's people hiking, kayaking, running, rowing, whatever it is, you know, looking at you know, Luke Matthews and what he went through and his team, David Labouchere and his team. And I mention them only because I'm actively involved with them. I know there's my Tri Club and Matt Dewhurst and his team of guys. There's probably 20 other triathlon clubs and health and fitness clubs I could try and name, but what they're continually doing just with their support, not just physically, but they offer a lot of mental support for a lot of people. And that is amazing. That, we should all be eternally thankful to those people that are really pushing it and helping people as well. So thank you to you guys.
Mate, legend. Thank you so much, mate. Enjoy the time with the kids. Mate, you've given us so much of your time, so much useful stuff there. And
pleasure, bud. Thanks for putting me on the show. It's an honor. It really is.
Awesome.
I'll see you for a coffee soon, hopefully.
Yeah, up at Zad's. There we go.
Yeah, man.
Mate, it's not a very good track record. Go for a ride at Zad's. 2 weeks later, I find you in hospital. Let's be careful.
Oh, yeah. There's you, myself, Nick Watson, and there's another huge shout out as well, which we've got to give credit to, is Nick Watson and what he's doing with Team Angel Wolf. So, an Urban Swim Academy with all their swim stuff that they're still helping us with. So, anyway, mate, stay safe. Stay safe.
Thanks a lot, buddy. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time on the show. Legend, mate. Cheers, bro. Yeah.